Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Two Dads UK and our second series of COVID support sessions. In this series, if you're following this particular series, you'll know that we're talking about parenting crisis through lockdown. So the aptly named 19 parenting crises, which is what we're covering with our guests on this particular series. We've had a real interesting mix of parents that have shared with us the highs and the lows, the good and the bad, and generally what lockdown has been. Now, this next guest is someone that you may recognise off the telly box. I've just been chatting to him and just going through the oracle that is Wikipedia, just to run through some of this gentleman's repertoire. More recently, obviously, you'll recognise him from Holby City, but also he's appeared in other dramas and series such as Casualty, Coronation Street, and a number of films, which I'm going to get him to talk us through when we join. But I'm really, really pleased and thrilled to be joined by not only a parent, but also an LGBT activist and obviously actor, Mr. Charlie Condou. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for having me.
No problem. You are very welcome. Thanks for giving us some of your afternoon today, sir. I appreciate it. What's today? What's a typical day for you then? Now, what have you been doing today?
Well, today actually is the handover day for the kids. So they've been staying with us for a few days, and they went to their mums at lunchtime. So this morning consisted of schoolwork, homeschooling, and everything that entailed. And this afternoon has consisted mainly of me sat in front of the television, doing nothing.
And how old are yours now?
My daughter is 10, almost 11, so she's actually back at school. She's gone back now because she's year 6, and my son is 8, so he's not going back until next week.
And how has homeschooling been? Because our kids are so young, we're fine, but
yeah.
Tell me a little bit.
It's a challenge, that's for sure. Yeah, it's been a real learning curve for me, probably not so much for my kids. I'm not sure how much they've learned. I always knew that they were smart. I didn't know that they were smarter than me. Certainly maths has been interesting, but it's fine. You know, we've managed to get through it. Both me and my husband work from home anyway, so we're around and we've been taking it in turns and kind of, you know, trying to do the best that we can.
The best that you can, exactly. I remember my husband has a 16-year-old with his ex-wife, and when I met Wes, Katie was 7. So I remember helping her with homework when she was about 8 years old, and she was doing compound fractions, which
we're doing them at the moment.
Are you? Well, when you mentioned his age, I was thinking, oh shit, I bet he's doing compound fractions.
Compound fractions, that's what we were doing today.
How strange. And I don't think Siri was in my life back then, but I remember definitely asking Google, and I felt incredibly stupid. That's all I remember.
Well, I mean, I have to say the BBC are fantastic at the moment because they've got all of these amazing online resources and videos and all sorts, and there are lessons laid out. I mean, my kids' school have been just phenomenal in terms of the content that they're providing during this time. But the BBC are also doing it. So I just, you know, I've been watching a lot of rubbish animations about that kind of stuff.
So for those, and we'll come on and we'll talk about what you've been doing work-wise, because you know I'm sure all of the filming has just come to a halt, which I'd love to hear about in a moment. But for those not familiar with I guess your parenting, your life, if you don't mind, just give us an update on how parenting is for you generally.
Yeah, well, I suppose I co-parent with my husband and a friend of ours, Catherine, who was an old friend of mine, and she was single and she'd split up with her boyfriend and hadn't met anybody else, and kind of said, if I hit 40 and I haven't met anybody, we should talk about having kids together. I'd always wanted to be a dad anyway. And that's kind of what happened. We started to talk about it more seriously, and to cut a very long story short, went through IVF, and we've now got two. And we co-parent. They go between the two houses, so they're with us for half the week, and they're with her half the week. And that's kind of how it works out, and it's always been that way. And hopefully, touch wood, very successfully. So that's kind of our setup, really.
Amazing. I love it. I love it's a conversation that I think many gay men have had with that friend in their life. And it's like, if we get to 40, I know I did it with one of my best friends, if we get to 40 and neither one of us has met anybody, let's produce some babies. And it's so lovely that you're a product of that actually happening in our world. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I was growing up, there wasn't really anybody there certainly weren't any co-parents. I don't think there was even a word when I was, I'm 47 now. And that definitely wasn't a thing. And in fact, one of the reasons that when I went into Coronation Street, I was on Coronation Street for about 5 years. I decided that I wanted to be that person that talked about the fact that gay people could have children, just like normal people.
Just like normal people.
But also just that, apart from a few logistical differences, parenting for gay people is just the same as it is for straight people. It's just as mundane and relentless. And so I went to the Guardian and asked them if I could have a column, because I kind of figured you could do that. You could just.
But you did, and you had a successful parenting column for a while.
They gave me a weekly column, so I wrote about our experiences for every Saturday for a year, I think it was. I sort of wanted to. I had a bit of a profile at the time, and I thought, well, maybe this is some good that I can do.
And and some good you did. So thank you for. I remember reading it. I remember our parenting journey didn't start. Me and Wes met in 2012, but I had researched with an ex-partner looking into either co-parenting or international surrogacy or UK surrogacy, and I remember looking for those people that you could look for advice or seek out, that because I didn't know any gay people that were having children, and it was just no one was bringing it to the forefront, or no one was talking about it, and you in the Guardian were. So
I think that was around about the time that my column was, because my son was born in 2012, and we started writing it when Georgia was a baby and Catherine was pregnant with him. So it would have been around about that time. Yeah, and it was the same. Nobody. I mean, nowadays all the gays are doing it. Mickey Mouse, they all copied me.
You set that bar.
Yeah, I started it. Now they're all doing it. That was the reason for doing it, was to kind of be visible, I suppose. And there was a lot of pressure that came with that. I mean, I always try my hardest to be a good parent anyway, and to make sure that the kids are heard and supported and loved and are growing up to be responsible, kind human beings. But I think there's an added pressure in a way of being so vocal about it, of being so public and talking about what it is that we're doing, because you really do need to get it right. You really, you are. It's not that we're role models. I don't really like that term. I prefer the possibility model, in that if people like what it is that we're doing, they might go, oh, we might try that too. But obviously, don't base your lives on what we do. We get everything wrong. But do you know what I mean? It's that kind of, you want to try and make sure that you're doing the best you can, because the last thing you want is the Daily Mail going, oh well, look at those gay lads, look at the mess they're making of it. So,
and that's so true. Do you feel there's more pressure on us to do well because of scrutiny?
Partly, yes, I do. And I think that's changing. I think the more common it's becoming, the more usual gay
Hmm.
parents are, then the less that's an issue. Um, there are a lot of pros to our situation. There's a lot of benefits to being a co-parent. Um, the fact that the kids go between the two homes mean that we get a break, they get a break,
Yeah,
so that when we come together, when we're with them, when the children are here, we're fully focused on them. We don't get strung out. We don't ever get to that point where we think, oh Jesus, I just need a break, because of course we get breaks all the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
um, and so it's really good, and it's been a massive success. That doesn't mean that it doesn't come without its problems as well, but mainly I would say it's a really
Amazing.
positive thing.
Yeah, incredible. So how has lockdown been then?
It's been tough. I think it's tough for everyone. I think the hardest part really is just finding things to do.
Hmm.
Um, because everything's shut. You can't go to the cinema, you can't go to the swimming pool, you can't even go to the playground. They're not allowed play dates with other kids. I mean, certainly, mental health has been a big problem for a lot of young people, a lot of children, because they're not getting to play, which is what's so important. Now,
Hmm.
particularly for my kids' age group, it's essential, and that's been really difficult. I've tried, like so many parents, to be creative and to try and get them away from screens as much as possible. But also, I think I've just learned that you have to relax on
Hmm.
a lot of that stuff and just get through it as best you can. And if that means sticking them in front of the telly or giving them your phone for a bit or whatever it is, then fine. We're not
Yeah.
living in normal times at the moment, and you've got to do whatever you need to do to get through it.
Hmm. Agreed. My next question is, what is it? What got you through it? Now it sounds like there's been flexibility and realism, really, that sometimes giving them the phone for an hour it's not going to hurt. We're in a unique situation.
We're in a unique situation. If nothing else, this is a lesson in acceptance, right? We've
Mm.
never been in this situation before, and I, I think you can view it in different ways. We can look at all the downsides and go, "Oh my God, I've got no work and I've got no money coming in, and we can't do anything." And but the entire world is in this situation to one
Yeah.
degree or another, and so you can look at it as perhaps a way of seeing it's a reset button, really,
Yeah.
and it gives you an opportunity. It gives us an opportunity to pause and
Hmm.
to reassess what's important. So I think we've been doing a lot of that, really, and kind of going, well, I'm realizing just how much time and effort I spend on my work, because I've always got something going on. And one of the reasons I left Coronation Street was I wasn't seeing enough of my kids. It was a
Okay.
main reason I left, in fact. And now realizing that I still have the tendency to fall into that. I've got so much work going on, and this has been a time where we haven't had the opportunity to do anything. So
Hmm.
it gives you time to sort of reassess what's important, I suppose.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely. I think the what resonates with me, what you've just said, is that reset button. I doing various projects, trying to get various things off the ground, and I hear myself saying repeatedly to the kids, "That is a bit busy. I'll come and chat to you in a minute." And just this has really given us an opportunity to reset and analyze and go, right, this is
Yeah.
about the kids, and let's just refocus, reconnect as a family. um, and use this time to do all the quality stuff. And some of it is productive, and some of it is just sitting on the sofa in your pajama bottoms watching Frozen for the 17th time.
Yeah, your kids are that age, aren't they?
So sure. Oh, Moana and Frozen is what we're into in this house. Um, you touched on work, so I'm sure your industry is doing some bizarre things at the moment. I know I'm seeing a lot of programming repeated is being churned out to fill some of the void. What's happening in television at the minute?
Well, I mean, it's a difficult time, isn't it? It's a bit of a brave new world. I know a lot of people are making their own things, and I've got a bunch of friends, Angela Griffin and Tamsin Outhwaite and Tracy
Mhm.
Oakman and people like that have created a show called Done Breeding, which is on at the moment. And so people are taking things into their own hands. David Tennant and Michael Sheen have just done something as well that's on television. So I think there's a lot of that. I've been asked to, I've done various monologues and things for charities and readings of things and poetry and that kind of stuff. So that stuff makes me feel like I'm being creative in a way. I'm not sure people are watching them, but I feel better. But I mean, I should be at the moment. I should be in the middle of a play, which of course all got put on hold. So now the idea is that I'll be starting work on that in September. But again, who knows? I mean, we just don't know at the moment. And it's like that a lot in my industry. People just kind of, nobody's really sure what's going on. Nobody knows when things are going to start up again. I know that Holby, I just finished filming on Holby when all this happened, but I think that's, they had a pause, and I think they've gone back to work now. The same with Coronation Street. I think they're slowly starting to get back into work, but it's all very different. You know, they've got to maintain social distancing. That's hard on a film set. Or
yeah, and particularly if you're playing a character with a love interest or a family or a partner,
yeah.
you know, guidelines would tell you can't do that because
right.
of how strange, fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, I digress because I was really curious to see what was happening in that world. Lockdown, back to lockdown, I'm afraid. I mentioned Frozen's played a major part in ours, and Moana and Disney soundtracks, and my Spotify playlist is now, I thought it was quite cool, it's now just full of Disney. Is there anything soundtrack or musically or Netflix that's got you or getting you through this? What have you been binge watching or listening to?
Well, my son has just discovered The Simpsons, so every chance he gets to put the telly on, The Simpsons go on. So I've been, which is actually kind of good because, you know, it could be worse. My kids could be your kids' age, and I'll be watching Peppa Pig and Ben and Holly and all of those shows, which I loved at the time. Of having to watch those 24/7 in this lockdown period is quite difficult. So at least we've got like 1 million seasons of The Simpsons to get.
Oh God, yeah.
My daughter's kind of obsessed with TikTok at the moment. That's the.
Oh my God! Isn't everybody though? Jeez.
Roping me into making stupid videos, doing stupid dances. To my mind, not to hers, obviously. She thinks they're incredibly cool. So I've been doing a lot of that as well, which actually isn't so bad. That at least that's creative in some sense, and you're doing something active with them. So, you know, could be worse.
Amazing. No, TikTok, our eldest Katie, you can't actually have a conversation without her arms all over the place, like she's constantly doing a TikTok dance.
Georgia sits at dinner doing this all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like,
what's going on? I'm glad it's not just us. Right, finally, before I let you sign off and get back to having some you and your husband time, best and worst of this period, you know, the high and the low, and the thought is so others can, you know, find either some comfort or can actually go, do you know what, that I totally get that's been this household too.
I suppose the best thing has been just accepting where we are and allowing ourselves just to kind of relax on the things that normally are really stressful. Because when you realize that you have no control over a situation, you have to just kind of give it up really and go, well, we are where we are. And there's been something quite that's been quite nice really, and just having the time to hang out with the kids and spend time with them, and not feeling like my attention is elsewhere. So I suppose that's been the best. The worst for me has definitely not been seeing my friends, my family. That's been really difficult. My sister's got cancer at the moment, and I haven't been able to go over and see her. That's quite tough. And you know, my mum and my dad, I don't get to see them very often because we're all taking it quite seriously and trying to self-isolate as much as we can. So I suppose that, and I miss my mates. But you know, as I said before, everybody's in the same situation. It's so harder for me than it is for everybody else around the world. We just have to manage it.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about your sister, buddy. And yeah, great insight. I think a lot of people will understand that. Shielding. My mum's not in great health, so the whole shielding from your parents and missing them is just so hard. And when you've got kids that just want to see their grandparents,
Yeah.
it's a tough one. Look, I knew you'd be a gent. I knew I'd enjoy this, and thanks for the little snippets and insights as to what's going on in your bubble. I'm super grateful, Charlie. Thank you ever so much in giving us a little insight. You've been a pleasure.
Anytime. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. You take care, dude. See you.
Bye.
If you like what you've seen so far, head over to our website at www.twodaddies.co.uk. There you can read our blog and subscribe to our newsletter. Or find us on Facebook and Instagram, simply searching at twodads.u.k.